Congressman Wolf, you've done a lot of work on the SAFE Commission. Can you provide some background on that and talk about what it is and why you think we need it?
Well, the SAFE Commission is a bipartisan commission of 8 Republicans and 8 Democrats, modeled somewhat after the Iraq Study Group, which was my bill, to deal with the whole issue of where we are economically in the country. We currently have $9 trillion of debt. That's T, trillion. We also have $54 trillion of unfunded obligations. These are obligations that the American government says we will pay, but we have no way to fund them. And so we have Moody's and Standard & Poor's both have come out to say that we're going to lose our AAA bond rating. One said in 2012, the other says in 2018. We could go to junk bond status. Once you lose your AAA bond story, we could eventually get to the point that we have the same junk bond status of Estonia or Mexico or a country like that. China holds a large portion of our debt. China has almost become our banker. If China were to pull out of our markets could collapse. Saudi Arabia, which had 15 people on those airplanes that crashed into the World Trade Center and into the Pentagon, they hold a large portion of our debt. That's dangerous, that to have a foreign nation hold our debt. The Congress is broken. There's no hearings being held on this issue. The Budget Committee has done nothing. The Ways and Means Committee has done nothing. The Congress is so partisan and so divided that it will refuse to even address this issue. Now, in the 60s, 1/3 of our budget was in entitlements and interest on the debt. Now we're ready to reach a point where 2/3 of our budget are entitlements and interest on the debt. These are mandatory spending. And the discretionary spending is shrinking and shrinking, and the discretionary spending is on transportation, on education. We need to make sure that we're funding more in math and science and physics and chemistry and biology. Discretionary spending is the money we spend on healthcare. I think we should be doubling the budget at NIH. We should be tripling the budget at the National Science Foundation. That's where they're doing all the work on the brain, and that's the opportunity to find a cure for Alzheimer's, a cure for Parkinson's, a cure for autism. The NIH with regard to finding a cure for cancer. So there are so many reasons you have to get control of this spending, and yet nobody's doing it up here. So what the SAFE Commission does is a bipartisan commission, 8 Republicans and 8 Democrats, who will come together and take 1 year holding public hearings around the country in every Federal Reserve district. And then they are obligated, required under this bill, to send a proposal to Congress. And the Congress will be required to vote on it. Right now, the Congress isn't doing anything on this issue. The Budget Committee, you would think, would be dealing with this on a full-time basis. They're not. So this bill requires Congress to deal with it. It has to be an up or down vote. We have modeled this language after the language is in the Base Closing Commission. Up until that bill passed several years ago, you can never close a military base. No congressman, no senator would allow a base to close in their district or in their state. Now, Base Closing Commission, they have a so-called BRAC, the Base Closing Commission. They look and they make recommendations on the base that have to be closed, and they put it on in this bill, and it's an up or down vote. Same way here. Now, under the bill, the Republicans or Democrats in Congress could have an alternative. The administration could have an alternative. But quite frankly, they probably would not, because why haven't they done something since? Now, we have 90 co-sponsors. We have every political viewpoint in the House, from very conservative to very liberal to moderate. Our grandparents and our parents worked hard to give us the type of country that we have, and we have a moral obligation to pass that on to our children and our grandchildren. I have a quote here by Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a pastor who stood up to the Nazis, who fought Hitler and was opposed to fascism in Germany, and was executed. He was killed in Flossenburg prison. And here's what Dietrich Bonhoeffer said about the future. He said, the ultimate test of a moral society is the kind of world it leaves to its children. So what kind of world are we leaving to our children? Why isn't the Ways and Means Committee dealing with this issue? Why isn't the Budget Committee dealing with this issue? Why isn't the Bush administration dealing with this issue? Both sides have failed. The Bush administration has failed to deal with it. Secretary Paulson has failed to deal with it. The Democratic leadership has failed to deal with it. The Ways and Means Committee has failed to deal with it. The Budget Committee has failed to deal with it. So the ultimate test being what kind of society you're going to pass on to your children and grandchildren. So you cannot continue to allow this thing to go on and on, because eventually you're going to be talking about the bankruptcy of the United States government.
How do you think this commission differs from other commissions in the past? I think you've already addressed this a little bit, but I just want to talk about, commissions sometimes have a reputation for a lot of talk and no action.
Right.
What makes this one different?
Well, there have been some commissions that have just been a waste of time. The Bro-Mac Commission, they did a great job of looking at tax policy, and they didn't have to act, so nothing ever happened. And as you know, in our commission, we put everything on the table, all spending programs, including tax policy. A lot of commissions, they meet, they hold public hearings, they do a press conference at the White House or up on Capitol Hill. A week later, they're gone. What separates this is we mandate that there be a vote by Congress. So Congress cannot duck the issue as it's been doing over the past years. It would be modeled somewhat after the Base Closing Commission. That's the same way. They hold public hearings around the country. They come back, they craft their recommendations. There can be alternatives offered. We have to have the same baseline, if you will, and then there's a requirement for a vote. And it's worked very, very well over the years.
What do people say when you talk to them, both in the community, in Washington? What reaction do you have?
Well, we've had really very, very good support. Just so you know, this bill was drafted by a bipartisan group. So it has a lot of different elements that have come together. We've had editorials in major newspapers around the country supporting it. As people see, one, nothing's being done. Two, this is really bipartisan. Three, it solves a problem when no one else is looking at it. And lastly, that it would help bring about an American renaissance. It would bring a renaissance in our country. So this would help create jobs, economic opportunity. It's kind of when you're out of shape and you get yourself back in shape, it really makes a difference. It would also have more economic opportunities, but also be able to put more spending into Alzheimer's. To find a cure for Alzheimer's, we're close. To find maybe an opportunity to cure Alzheimer's, to cure Parkinson's disease, to put the resources into autism, to put the resources into finding a cure for cancer. A large number of my family have died of cancer. To be able to focus on cancer like a laser beam, a cure. So I think it would provide an economic renaissance for the nation. By doing this, it would be very, very good. And I think if people can see this, that's why I think the support's been growing. I think if you ask most Americans, do you think things are going well or not going well? I think an overwhelming would say, wrong track. We're not going well, and we've got to deal with these issues. And I think they want people in political office to deal with them, fundamentally to tell the truth, not to promise everything and just say, oh, well, it's going to be good tomorrow and all. I think by being candid and letting people know, I'm finding people are saying, wow, this is important. Let's do it. We're prepared to do what we have to do to get a balanced budget, to deal with these issues so we can give our children and our grandchildren as good a life as our parents and grandparents gave us. But for some reason, it's just not been dealt with.